You know how it is you want to really understand something complex, get to the heart of the matter without wading through endless reports and studies.
Yeah, like get the quick version, but the good version.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're looking for that shortcut to being well-informed, right? And that's exactly what we're doing today.
Okay.
We're diving deep into a vital topic: how multilingual children in grades K-5 learn to read in English.
And to make sure we're giving you the most robust understanding possible, we're not just looking at one piece of research. We've got a systematic review that's actually a review of other systematic reviews.
Whoa, okay, like a meta-analysis.
Sort of. Think of it like the Cliff's Notes of Cliff's Notes. It pulls together the collective wisdom from 30 different in-depth analyses published between 2000 and 2023.
Wow, 30.
Yeah, all focused on reading and the best ways to teach it to multilingual learners right here in U.S. elementary classrooms.
Exactly. So this isn't just one perspective, it's the distilled knowledge from a huge body of work. Our mission in this deep dive is to extract the truly essential, evidence-backed components.
Of how these kids learn to crack the code of English reading and what teaching methods actually make a real difference.
Right.
We know you're busy,
Yeah.
so we're aiming to give you the core insights, the stuff that really matters without, overwhelming you with unnecessary details. Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay. So what's fascinating right off the bat is how the general conversation around reading instruction often presents a seemingly simple answer.
Yeah, you hear it all the time.
You hear a lot about the crucial role of phonemic awareness, understanding the sounds in words and phonics connecting those sounds to letters. And while those are definitely important pieces of the puzzle,
Crucial pieces, sure.
this review reveals a much more intricate picture, especially when we're talking about children who are learning English as an additional language.
Right. It's almost like the education world has its own set of common knowledge that doesn't always hold up under closer scrutiny, kind of like that old saying about waiting an hour after eating before swimming.
Mm.
Exactly. There's this settled solution that's often talked about, drawing from fundamental ideas like the alphabetic principle, the understanding that letters represent sounds, and influential models like the simple view of reading and the reading rope. But what this review highlights is that this popular narrative frequently overlooks some really crucial nuances, particularly when you consider the experiences of multilingual learners.
That's a key point, and for you listening, it's something really important to keep in mind. The public discussion tends to focus quite a bit on how students read,
The cognitive stuff, yeah.
the fundamental cognitive processes that go into it. What often gets less attention is the applied research. How do we effectively teach reading?
And that's precisely where the unique needs of multilingual learners become so significant. There's often a noticeable gap between our general understanding of reading and how we best translate that into effective classroom practices for these students.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The review really shines a light on how the role of a student's first language, what we often call their L1,
All right, the home language.
is frequently downplayed in this mainstream discussion about reading instruction. Yet, there's a substantial amount of research demonstrating just how much those L1 skills matter when it comes to learning to read in English.
Absolutely critical.
I mean, one study highlighted in the review found that a student's literacy skills in their first language when they started kindergarten were actually a stronger predictor of their English reading growth all the way through fourth grade than their English proficiency was at the very beginning.
Wow. That's significant.
Now, that's a key insight that really challenges some common assumptions. So for you, listening to this, that really underscores that ignoring a child's native language in the classroom is potentially missing a huge opportunity for their English reading development.
Exactly. That really emphasizes the importance of looking at the whole linguistic background of the child. Now, to give us a framework for understanding all these different pieces, the review does touch on some very influential theories in the field.
Yeah.
We have the simple view of reading, which essentially breaks down reading comprehension into two core components.
Yeah.
Decoding, the ability to sound out words, and linguistic comprehension, the ability to understand the meaning of those words. It's a multiplication equation. Decoding times linguistic comprehension equals reading comprehension.
Right. If either is zero, the whole thing is zero.
Exactly. If either of those is zero, reading comprehension will also be zero.
And then there's the reading rope, which kind of unpacks those two main strands even further.
Right. It gets more granular.
The decoding strand gets broken down into things like phonological awareness, that ability to hear and manipulate sounds than the actual decoding of words, and also being able to recognize words automatically by sight.
Sight recognition.
And the linguistic comprehension strand involves things like background knowledge, vocabulary, understanding the structure of language, verbal reasoning skills, and just general knowledge about literacy itself.
Both of those models give us a really useful starting point for thinking about reading. However, the review also brings in the compensatory model for multilingual reading.
Compensatory, how does that work?
Well, what's fascinating here is this idea that multilingual learners can leverage strengths in one area to make up for weaker areas as they're developing their literacy skills in a new language.
Yeah. Oh.
For example, a strong understanding of vocabulary in their first language might really help them in understanding cognates, words that share origins and often have similar spellings and meanings in English.
So it's not just about learning English skills in isolation. It's a much more interconnected process where their existing language knowledge and their new English skills interact and support each other.
Precisely, it's synergistic.
Okay, so that gives us a really good foundation. Now, what did this massive review of reviews actually find are the essential components for multilingual learners when it comes to learning to read in English?
Right, the core findings. The review identified 4 broad clusters of components that consistently show a link to English reading comprehension for multilingual learners.
4 clusters.
The
Yeah.
first, and it's a really significant one, is oral language. This includes not only their English oral language skills, but also, quite interestingly, their oral language skills in their first language,
Yeah, hell one again.
with a particular focus on Spanish in many of the studies reviewed.
That makes intuitive sense, right? If you don't understand spoken English, trying to read it is going to be a real challenge.
Exactly.
But that connection back to their L1 oral language is still such a key takeaway for me.
Absolutely. The review highlights a moderate to strong positive link between a multilingual learner's English oral language proficiency and their English reading comprehension.
Yeah.
And this connection actually tends to strengthen as they get older. It also really emphasizes that having a robust English vocabulary is crucial.
Yeah, you need the words.
A lack of English words can significantly hinder their comprehension, particularly for those who are newer to the language.
And that intriguing detail you mentioned earlier about the extent of Spanish vocabulary, also significantly explaining the differences in how well Spanish-speaking students understand English text.
Yes, that's a fantastic nugget that really underscores the interconnectedness of their languages.
Really does. Okay, so oral language is cluster 1. What's cluster 2?
It really does. The second cluster is phonological awareness, often abbreviated as PA.
PA, right. Hearing the sounds.
This is the ability to hear and manipulate the individual sounds within words. The review found that English PA definitely contributes to English reading comprehension for multilingual learners, explaining a notable portion of the variance we see in their reading abilities.
So those foundational sound-based skills in English are still important. What's the third area?
Still very important. The third cluster is decoding and oral reading fluency.
Okay, sounding out words and reading smoothly.
Exactly. And this is where that L1 connection shows up again in a really significant way. The review found that a student's decoding skills in their first language, specifically Spanish and Chinese, in the studies they looked at, have a positive relationship with their English reading comprehension. Although it's interesting to note that this link tends to become less strong as they get older.
Interesting. So it's almost like those early literacy skills they develop in their first language provide a kind of foundational understanding of how print works,
That's a good way to put it.
which then helps them as they figure out the English writing system.
Exactly. And when we look at English decoding itself, the review shows a strong linear relationship with English reading comprehension, although that also tends to decrease somewhat with age.
Okay.
What's really critical in the early grades is that a student's initial level of skill and how quickly they develop in English decoding and how fluently they can read aloud are significant predictors of their later English reading comprehension.
Right. So getting that strong start matters a lot.
That really emphasizes the importance of getting a strong start in those early reading skills in English. And the final cluster,
The fourth one.
that's reading comprehension itself. Here, the review found a positive correlation between a student's reading comprehension in their first language, again, primarily Spanish in the studies reviewed, and their English reading comprehension. However, this link was observed to be weaker for those students who had lower levels of English proficiency,
Which goes back to the oral language point.
which really circles us back to the fundamental importance of having that English oral language base.
Yes. And the review mentioned that in one particular study, a student's L1 reading abilities were actually the best predictor of their English reading comprehension a year later.
That's a really powerful finding.
It really is. It highlights the value of those first language skills.
It truly is. The review also highlighted that using effective reading comprehension strategies, both in their first language and in English, is really key for these learners.
So, like metacognition, thinking about your reading.
Exactly. In fact, how well students utilize these strategies was found to be a better indicator of their reading success than just their overall English fluency.
Wow.
More than fluency.
Yeah. Even their own perceptions of whether they were using effective reading strategies seemed to play a role.
So it's not just about knowing the words on the page, it's about having those active reading skills, like being able to predict what might come next,
Summarizing.
or
Sure.
summarizing what you've just read, and being able to apply those skills in both languages.
That's right. Actively engaging with the text.
Okay, so we have a much clearer understanding now of the key components that are involved. Now let's shift our focus to what actually works in the classroom. What instructional practices and specific programs have been shown by the evidence to be effective for these multilingual learners?
Great question. The review took a close look at a wide range of teaching approaches and helpfully broke them down according to the 4 clusters we just discussed.
Starting with oral language, several effective practices emerged from the research. Things like using cooperative learning activities where students work together
Group work, yeah?
and engaging in interactive activities in the classroom were shown to be effective in improving academic English oral language skills.
Yeah.
Additionally, providing ample opportunities for students to read English texts with support from an adult made a positive difference.
That makes perfect sense. More opportunities for interaction and guided practice can really build confidence and accelerate language development. What about specifically targeting vocabulary? That seemed crucial.
Very crucial. For English vocabulary instruction, the review highlighted the effectiveness of explicit instruction focused on individual words, as well as more comprehensive vocabulary teaching that incorporates multiple methods.
Multiple methods like,
Think using visuals, pictures, and images,
Mm.
real objects, what they call realia, meaning real-life objects, gestures, and being very thoughtful about the selection of words and texts used in the classroom. Importantly, the strategic use of the student's first language was also found to be a valuable tool.
how so? Using L1 for vocab.
This includes things like previewing and reviewing texts in their L1, introducing key vocabulary in their L1 before encountering it in English, explicitly teaching cognates those words that share origins and similar meanings.
Right, like information and information.
Exactly those.
Yeah.
And even incorporating dual language books. Finally, teaching students specific word learning strategies, such as how to use context clues within a sentence and how to understand different parts of a word, also proved to be beneficial.
It sounds like a really multisensory and multilingual approach to building vocabulary is the most effective. Were there any specific programs that stood out in the research for oral language development?
Yes, there were a few that showed positive results. For building Spanish vocabulary, Descomprendo la Lectora and VE Sator were found to be effective. And for developing English oral language skills, programs such as corrective reading, direct instruction, Project English Language, and literacy acquisition, that's ELLA.
ELA, got it.
Reading Mastery and Wilson Reading were all shown to have positive impacts, although the reported effect sizes did vary somewhat across these programs.
Okay, let's move on to phonological awareness. What instructional practices have been shown to be effective in this area for multilingual learners?
The review indicated that direct instruction in phonological awareness skills is effective for multilingual learners, and this holds true regardless of their current level of English oral proficiency.
So direct teaching works here.
Yes. Furthermore, using peer pairing and peer tutoring activities, as well as engaging students in small collaborative groups for tasks like predicting what will happen in a story, reading aloud together, and retelling stories, showed positive results.
Peer work again. Seems like a theme.
It does. It showed positive results in improving English phonological awareness across different grade levels.
So it sounds like both explicit teacher-led instruction and opportunities for peer interaction play important roles in developing these foundational sound-based skills in English. What about specific programs designed to target phonological awareness?
Several programs demonstrated significant positive effects on English phonological awareness. These include ELA, which we just mentioned,
Right.
Ladders to Literacy, Lectura Proactiva, peer-assisted learning strategies in reading for kindergarten or K-PELs,
K-12. Okay.
proactive reading, read well, and sound partners. Again, these programs often incorporate explicit and systematic instruction in phonological awareness, along with other crucial reading components.
Now let's focus on decoding and oral reading fluency. We've already heard that skills in a student's first language can often transfer and provide a foundation. What specific instructional practices are most helpful for developing English decoding skills in multilingual learners?
The review really emphasizes the importance of explicit and systematic instruction in both English phonological awareness and decoding skills.
Systematic and explicit. Keywords.
Absolutely. Additionally, strategically utilizing a student's first language to explicitly highlight shared letter-sound correspondences between their L1 and English can be a very effective technique.
Like pointing out sounds that are the same in both languages.
Exactly. And just like we saw with phonological awareness, incorporating peer pairing, peer tutoring, and collaborative groupings into decoding activities was found to positively impact students' English decoding skills.
It seems like those peer-based learning strategies are consistently beneficial across various aspects of reading development for multilingual learners.
They really appear to be.
What about specific programs that focus on improving decoding and fluency?
For developing decoding skills in their first language, programs like Descubriendo la Lectura, Lectura Proactiva, and Proactive Reading were shown to be effective.
Okay, those sound familiar from the L1 vocab list too.
Yes, some overlap. When it comes to English decoding, a more extensive list of programs demonstrated positive impacts, including corrective reading, PALMALs different from K-PALs,
Just Pellas, got it.
proactive reading, read naturally, read well, reading mastery, success for all or SFA,
SFA.
sound partners, and Wilson reading.
Wow, quite a few there. And for fluency, reading smoothly.
And for specifically improving English oral reading fluency, programs such as corrective reading, ELA, PLS, Reading Mastery, Read Well, and Sound Partners were all found to be effective based on the reviewed research.
That's quite a comprehensive list of programs. It's interesting to see some of the same program names appearing as effective across different skill areas.
It suggests they often target multiple skills, which makes sense for reading.
Definitely. Finally, let's talk about reading comprehension. What instructional practices have been shown to make a real difference in improving reading comprehension for multilingual learners?
This is an area where a really multifaceted approach appears to be necessary. The review strongly highlights the importance of direct and in-depth vocabulary instruction.
Back to vocab again.
Always comes back to vocab. Intentionally integrating books, explicit teaching methods, visuals, and those crucial connections to the student's first language that we discussed earlier.
Right.
Explicitly teaching students both decoding and comprehension strategies, such as making predictions about the text and summarizing key information, is also vital.
So teaching them how to think about the text.
Exactly. Providing meaningful supports and scaffolds in the classroom, like having book-rich environments and utilizing videos to build relevant background knowledge, were found to be helpful.
Scaffolding, yeah.
Incorporating structured writing activities, combining literature logs with engaging classroom discussions, and providing ample opportunities for peer interaction also contributed to better comprehension.
Lots of talking and writing about reading.
Yes. And finally, strategically using the student's first language for purposes like clarifying the meaning of words and concepts and discussing cognates was shown to be an effective practice.
It sounds like creating a really rich, supportive, and interactive learning environment that intentionally leverages all of a student's linguistic resources is what ultimately leads to better reading comprehension in English.
That sums it up very well.
Were there any specific programs that had a primary focus on comprehension?
Yes, for improving reading comprehension in their first language, programs like Lectura Proactiva, Proactive Reading, and Read naturally demonstrated positive effects.
Okay.
And for enhancing English reading comprehension, effective programs included corrective reading, HLPS fluency program, that's HLLPS,
HLPS.
Hello Sis, proactive reading, reading mastery, success for all, SFA, and sound partners. It's important to remember that many of these programs target multiple interconnected reading components, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. So as we start to bring this deep dive to a close, what are some of the key overarching takeaways and broader implications that emerge from this comprehensive review of the research?
Well, one of the most significant takeaways is the clear reinforcement that learning to read is a complex process, and this is even more so when you're doing it in a new language.
For sure.
While foundational skills like phonological awareness and decoding in English are undeniably important building blocks, The research definitively shows the crucial role played by both the students' existing first language skills and their developing English oral language abilities.
Right. You can't ignore
You
those.
really can't. This really suggests that while helpful, foundational models like the simple view of reading and the reading rope could be even more informative and practically useful for educators of multilingual learners if they explicitly incorporated these L1 components into their frameworks.
That makes perfect sense. It's about recognizing and really valuing the assets and prior knowledge that these students bring with them to the classroom,
Exactly. Seeing L1 as an asset.
rather than just focusing on what they might not yet know in English.
Exactly. And while the reviews didn't specifically focus in depth on areas like sight word recognition, background knowledge, and general literacy knowledge, their ongoing importance for multilingual learners is still highly probable,
Stands to reason.
especially as they continue to build connections between their different languages and cultural experiences.
Hmm.
The consistently effective instructional practices we've seen really underscore the power of peer interaction and collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of explicit teaching of specific skills and strategies, and that strategic and thoughtful use of the student's first language as a valuable bridge to English literacy.
It's a really important reminder that a one-size-fits-all approach to reading instruction simply isn't going to be effective, particularly in our increasingly diverse classrooms.
And that brings us to some significant implications for educational policy. The review points out that while many states have implemented science of reading policies,
Yeah, lots of buzz about that.
a surprisingly small number of these policies actually include specific evidence-based strategies that are tailored to meet the unique needs of multilingual learners, even though this is a substantial and growing segment of the overall student population.
That seems like a major oversight.
It does. There's a clear and pressing need for policies that explicitly recognize and address the diverse literacy development needs of all students, including those learning English as an additional language.
Absolutely. And what about the direct implications for what teachers are doing in their classrooms every single day? What should they take away?
For curriculum design and daily instruction, this body of research strongly emphasizes the need to really prioritize the development of both L1 and L2 oral language and linguistic comprehension right alongside the teaching of decoding skills,
Give them equal weight almost.
or at least ensure they are both strongly addressed. Intentionally incorporating the student's first language into instruction, even in small strategic ways, and making the intentional building of their English oral language proficiency key priorities in the classroom should be central to effective literacy instruction for multilingual learners.
This has been such an incredibly insightful deep dive. It's so valuable to move beyond the more simplistic narratives around reading instruction and really understand the complexities and the evidence-based approaches that can truly support multilingual learners on their journey to becoming strong and confident readers in English.
It really is a more nuanced picture than often presented.
So, to wrap things up, we've seen how understanding the science of reading for multilingual learners requires us to consider a much wider range of factors than just phonics instruction.
Much wider.
We've explored the critical importance of oral language development in both their first language and in English, the fascinating ways that decoding skills can transfer across languages, and the fundamental significance of teaching effective reading comprehension strategies.
And we've examined a variety of instructional practices and specific programs that have been rigorously shown through research to be effective in supporting these different but interconnected components of reading development for multilingual learners.
So here's a final thought-provoking question for you listening to consider. Given the clear and compelling benefits we've discussed today of strategically leveraging a student's first language in their development of English literacy, what are some of the most innovative and practical ways that educators can actually incorporate meaningful L1 support into mainstream English reading instruction, particularly when they're working with classrooms that include students from a wide array of diverse language backgrounds?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. It's a complex challenge, but one that is truly worth our collective focus and creative problem solving.
We sincerely hope this deep dive has provided you with a solid and nuanced understanding of this really important field without making you feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information.
Yeah, hopefully a useful shortcut.
There is always more to learn and explore, and we encourage you to reflect on the insights we've shared today and perhaps even delve deeper into some of the specific programs and research areas that we've mentioned.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's been valuable for you. Until our next exploration together.